Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. Welcome to this now moment where all of your creation and all of your power lies. It's your presence, your love, compassion, your heart. This is home. Now we are assisted in dropping out of our minds and into our heart with Jean Ang, channel of the Arcturian Healing Frequencies.
So we'll do the dropping into the heart, centering process, and to enter the now state, and to access the quantum field of infinite possibilities. So you can just start by asking yourself, where in the space around me is the majority of my consciousness? And just go with what you first feel or see or know. For example, mine feels a little bit above me and in front of my head. And gently bringing wherever you are in the space, bringing your awareness now to the center of your head. Just feeling the shift of awareness as you bring your consciousness to the center of your head. And now we'll shift to the now moment by dropping from the center of your head down to the center of your heart. Just feel the shift in the awareness, the energy in the space around you. We'll just spend a moment here at the center of our heart. In this field of infinite possibilities. If you like this practice, you can always do it whenever you'd like to enter the now moment.
In this episode of The Now Show, we meet Jean Ang, channel of the Arcturian Healing Frequencies, who brings an important message of practicing positivity in this time of great change.
Positivity, it's a practice to try to see the positive in all aspects of our life. The ones that are already positive are probably not where our learning curve is, because it's quite easy to already be positive if everything's going positive. But it's more the maybe difficult situations, or even situations that for the most part of the general population you would say is quite a negative situation. And the practice is to try to find the positive aspect. This actually opens up one of the petals of the heart. So it is a practice. That's what I'm attempting to do for myself, is to look at the positive as a spiritual practice.
We are here in this now moment, and we are being assisted by incredible new energies. We could say these are new earth energies, or energies from interdimensions, helping us, assisting us in this time on planet Earth. We are here with Arcturian Healing Frequencies Master, Jean Ang, who's here to share more on this assistance that we're getting. Hello, Jean, welcome.
Hello, great to see you, and great to be here with everyone. And it's always a wonderful time sharing the energies and just the insights that are coming down for everyone during this time. And I'm so glad that we're able to do this now.
Let's start right there, Jean. The energies are, we could say, wild. That means that at one point they are pressuring us into becoming diamonds, and at another point they are assisting us in manifestations and beautiful creations. Tell us what's going on. Give us an update from your perspective.
Yeah, I think what I'm finding is that just through maybe being in this similar like lockdown period for everyone around the world, that we're turning to the online platforms more. And this is a little bit like a reflection in the spiritual world, because the online platforms in many ways are kind of maybe reflect our interconnectedness through consciousness. And so what I'm finding is now the events are much more international, and people from all around the world are connecting at the same time in this sort of now moment, even though we're all in different time zones. And that the processes, because they're interconnected around the globe through everyone's individual consciousness, are actually much stronger. And so you're meeting people who you may really never would probably have met, most likely, without this sort of unique opportunity. So I find on the spiritual level that there's even more opportunities to connect both on the, maybe you could say, horizontal level to people here on the planet, but then also on the vertical level to the divine energies. And then people have different spiritual guides, and like the Arcturians we were mentioning, are bringing through probably a much stronger energy, just because of the collective group is larger.
Okay, that is fascinating. And I just want to recap that there, because one thing about you, Jean, is that you have studied extensively in the Eastern traditions and in Tibetan traditions and Buddhist traditions and the whole gamut, pretty much. Rudolf Steiner. You're very well-rounded, and you are one of the most balanced spiritual teachers, if I may say so, because of always looking towards the positive, always seeing the greatest potential. So for you to say, here we are in a situation that some could look and say, that's not so fun, it's not so friendly, You are definitely taking a fun and friendly approach to it, looking at the incredible opportunity. And so, as you look at that opportunity, you see incredible changes, how these energies, when we gather in groups with like-hearted individuals, it's amplified. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. Actually, maybe as we go on in the interview, we can do different processes. But just a couple of points that you mentioned, like with Rudolf Steiner, he did have these what he was called 6 basic exercises. They're actually not that basic. I think they're probably a better term is 6 fundamental exercises, and they actually are meant to more fully open the heart chakra. But the one that's most relevant here, and I can kind of mention all 6 in conclusion, but is one of them is positivity. So it's the idea that, and it's a practice, is to try to see the positive in all aspects of our life. Particularly, probably the ones that are already positive are probably not where our learning curve is, because it's quite easy to already be positive if everything's going positive. But it's more the maybe difficult situations, or even situations that, for the most part of the general population, you would say is quite a negative situation. And then the practice is to try to find the positive aspect. And this actually opens up one of the petals of the heart. So it is a practice. And I guess that's why maybe that's what I'm attempting to do for myself, is to look at the positive as a spiritual practice.
Yes. And you do it for yourself, and you do it for all of us. And it's so beautiful and it's refreshing. So, as we are talking about the now moment, this is where all of our power lies. It is where our connection within lies. It is where our access to wisdom is.
Yes. I think the nicest practice that I know within that kind of category of really centering yourself and actually accessing both the now moment and as well as the quantum field of all possibility is dropping into the heart. And I learned this in a number of different schools or teachers, like Richard Bartlett taught me this version. There was a version in Master Chokoku Sui's work. I find it really shifts the consciousness and the energy. The first question is you ask, where is my consciousness now in terms of the space around me? So some people might find it like either above their head or maybe somewhere in their body or even below their body. Then the second step is to bring your awareness to the center of your head. And then finally, the third movement is you drop from the center of your head like an elevator into your heart. And then that particular movement actually accesses the quantum field. So you're in this field of infinite possibility. And then you just rest there at the heart. You could stay there for as long as you like. You may actually feel that shift in kind of the room or your awareness.
The energy shift is palpable.
Hmm.
Thank you for that, as we are all here. When we felt that centering in the heart, in the field of infinite possibilities, very interesting that the ego mind was still present, but in the background, in its individuation, yet the worries were not in the forefront. And that's really how we can create going into our future. From this heart based creation, that is the access to the quantum field. And so, thank you for bringing us there. And let's talk a little bit about the petals of the heart, because we cannot access the quantum field unless we go through the heart. Can you talk a little bit more about your understanding on this topic of that quantum field and the petals of the heart and this heart centered consciousness?
Mhm. Yes. The development of the heart chakra, as people probably know from their experience, is probably very central and important, and also a safe way to for your spiritual path or spiritual development. Just if you look at it geometrically, if you use a 7 chakra model system, it's actually the middle chakra. So there would be 3 above, like the crown, and maybe you include the forehead and the throat, and then the 3 below, perhaps the you might include the solar plexus, the navel or the sex chakra, one of those, and then the base chakra. So the heart is right at the center. So it's a very important geometrical location in our energy body. So that's one kind of point. And then the idea is in the system that I was presenting here, and people may have learned other systems. It's kind of like the different software packages for the energy body. But I was presenting one that I mentioned Rudolf Steiner, a teacher in anthroposophy, or kind of a more Western esoteric approach, presented 12 lotus petals or 12 sectors of the heart chakra. And the teaching or the idea is that 6 of them are already opened in humanity just through our own evolutionary process. And then our goal or our purpose is to open the remaining 6. And of course, there's a framework of lifetimes and reincarnation. So it would be like a long-term project. But just focusing on the now and kind of what we can do here, those remaining 6 fundamental practices, and you might see them in all types of spiritual traditions, and also ones you're doing now. So we mentioned the positivity. The other one is to be open to new ideas. So you could call it openness. So just being open to, in fact, there's another geometrical teaching on that, to try to learn 12 perspectives around any idea. So this is kind of the power of 12, or the dodecahedron. We may talk about that. It's a little bit of another big topic, but so that's openness. And then the 3 other ones that kind of are a big focus is developing thinking, or developing the head center, which we've done in different meditations, sort of where you meditate at the center of the head, and clarity and thinking. And then developing the heart center in terms of your feeling abilities, and sort of being mindful of the different feelings or emotions you're creating. And then finally, the belly center, developing the belly center. And these can be actually meditations and also spiritual practices. And that has to do with your will or acting. So 2 of the practices in that, just to give a flavor for the way Steiner was teaching kind of his inner school, was one, doing something that you don't want to do, but that you know would actually help during the day, or help you. So you try to do that one thing, and that develops your will center. And then kind of a unique exercise is you choose one thing you do every day at the same time that you have no reason for doing. So for example, you might take your shoes, and wherever you have placed them, you reverse their direction at 7 a.m. every morning. And so there's really no reason to do that action, but by doing that as a daily practice, you build this will center, like this will energy in you. Because a lot of times the actions we're doing, they actually have some type of other reason that we're kind of almost riding on, like an emotional, like we may go to a party because everyone's going to the party. We haven't actually done anything with our willpower to decide that or not. So anyways, this kind of very simple, almost seemingly looks unimportant practice can develop a very strong will center. And then just to conclude on this, the 6th practice is to bring all of those 5 practices together in your life. And that helps to build these 6 lotus petals. So this is one system to do that.
All right, that's good work, good practice. And we thank you for sharing that, considering doing something every day and building the will for that. All right, that's very good. So you are bringing forward the Arcturian Healing Frequencies, and you work with other energies as well. For those of us that do not know you, for those who do not know you, can you share a little bit about what is happening with these Arcturian healing frequencies? We do webinars with you pretty much every month, and in these, they're all different and they're loaded with teachings, and we are being assisted by other beings, interdimensional beings, other dimensional beings. And the Arcturian healing frequencies are actually a mild, in our most recent one, they were like a filter, a very gentle filter for integration. So explain the Arcturian healing frequencies, their mission for planet Earth.
For people who are just new to the Arcturian concept or those energies or beings, you could think of them as, or the way I see them, as a type of interdimensional or spiritual consciousness. Many like how someone might perceive an angelic being, sort of an awakened or developed being who doesn't necessarily have a physical vehicle, but who can we can interact with and who helps guide us or assist us, whether that's in our life or in healing. And so I find the Arcturians very much like that, or interact with them in that way. And we could, of course, unpack a lot of these aspects, but to kind of make it in a packed or a short form, I see their role is in many respects is in terms of healing in whatever level or aspect, usually through different light codes or frequencies or states of consciousness, kind of elevating and balancing our different subtle bodies. And so they're here to assist, and they'll come if you ask them. Usually they'll just be in the background if the person isn't necessarily aware, or they kind of respect a person's free will. And my evolution with them probably spanned over, let's see, I think I came into first contact even with the idea in around 1999. And so I didn't really hold a public class until 2011. And so now so we're talking about 20 years now here or more. So it's very powerful, but the relationship definitely is something that kind of works over time. So that's just an initial comment on the Arcturians for people who might be new to that idea.
And when we work with the frequencies, I do just want to say that every experience is different. The clarity that comes from it, the stillness of just being and showing up and being in the energies as they're transmitted is changing. And there's always an integration period where we've seen our communication with these realms increase, our understanding increase, and we can really feel the assistance of the Arcturian. And it's just a beautiful awareness to have working with these beings and this consciousness, this spiritual consciousness for healing. Isn't it interesting that before the 21st century, before 2000, that was your big gateway, your window into working with them? That's amazing to me.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was even kind of I may have mentioned this in one of the other, maybe earlier interviews where we were talking about kind of just my background story. But it was actually through a book, Joshua David Stone's, one of his books. But I wasn't even aware of these different interdimensional beings at the time of reading it. But I think that book, like many books, written material can be, particularly if the author has that kind of awareness, can be transmission, like a vehicle or a vessel for transmission. So I think just by his writing, even though I didn't even really notice the word, I know that it was there when I read it. Had probably given me like the first transmission or connection to the Arcturians.
I do want to say that you are very well read. You are very well studied. Eclectic is the word that comes to mind. And in all of the events and sessions that we do with you, you always bring forward a wealth of information about books and the esoteric teachings of all of this. One of the best energetic experiences was the focusing on the column of light. Focusing on the column of light, share with us what is going on, focusing our attention at different aspects along the Shishumna or the central column.
Mhm. Yeah, that has been become a big part of a lot of the offerings or classes that we've been holding. Also in the Arcturian healing method, which is like the training aspect. That's become a big part of the practices, that particular meditation. And the column is basically this vertical energy column that maybe some people have been aware of or even working with. And I see it like having three parts, like one that's kind of vertical above your head. And people might have heard of the Antakarana or the Rainbow Bridge, or I just call it the upper pillar of light. And this is a bit like a reflection of our connection to our higher self and the divine. And then, like you mentioned, the Sushumna Nadi or central channel that people might have worked with in yoga, Eastern or Western yoga systems. That's sort of from the crown to the root chakra, so within our body. Again, the kind of more vertical column of energy. And then finally, there's the column that goes into the ground, to the center of the earth, and even infinitely beyond that. And I just call that the lower pillar. And people might, work with that in terms of the hara, which is at the belly, and then working with their grounded, or they sometimes call it the grounding cord. So all three aspects are like important to develop, and one of the main ways you develop that is just by putting your awareness in those different energy points or chakras, and either working with them or meditating or kind of keeping your awareness there for some aspect. And then the energy kind of collects there and sort of builds that part. But the different spiritual abilities or gifts that you see, like in yourself or in someone else, they came from actually building some part of the energy field. And usually, since that pillar is so comprehensive, some aspect of the pillar. So, just to give one idea that maybe people have this capacity or have developed it or may have seen actually others, maybe you've met a healer or so forth, is like our ability to sort of see someone's energy field, or at least it doesn't have to be visual sight. It could be like a feeling of their energy body. And that's usually done by developing this part of our column. So the forehead, or this, they call it the ajna. And sometimes people just call this the third eye area. So this like third eye that sees more subtle vibrations. So you can build that. Let's say you're not, that was completely new, or you don't feel like you can see colors or even feel energies. So a practice in the pillar to build that would just be to focus here in the center of your, just sit, or you could even do it lying down. Just focus right here in the center of your eyebrow for 5 minutes. So the idea is anytime your mind goes to somewhere else, you always just keep pulling it back here. And if you do that for 30 days, or even shorter, but let's say it was some kind of prolonged period, you'll start to have increased intuition, increased ability to see maybe like the light halos around people when you defocus your eyes. And it kind of like you can show for yourself that sort of these abilities can be developed. But that's just one aspect, and we could talk more, but it's just kind of like a general overview.
When we talk about the Arcturian healing frequencies, we're using this practice and we're being assisted by a range of frequencies, whether it's other beings or specifically Arcturian frequencies. And so it does develop our senses. Let's see. One of the things I wanted to talk about, another forte that you offer, is the lucid dreaming. So here we are in the dream space. And we've done this before. We've done some beautiful courses on the dream space, but we can actually use the Arcturian healing frequencies to build our energies in the dream space and to build lucidity in the dream space. And I find it so fascinating because that is a continuation of consciousness. Share with us about the importance of really working in that dream space with lucidity.
Yeah. I think the working with our dreams and also our deep sleep as a process is a very direct, kind of natural way to experience and also develop our multidimensional self. So people have already been having dreams starting since they were probably in the fetus, and as a baby and young. And so it's very easy if like this aspect is new, maybe speaking to someone who is just coming in to more of the multidimensional consciousness, or just always had an inkling that they're much more than just their physical body, for example, would be one definition of a multidimensional framework. It's easy segue to work with your dream state because we've already have been having a lot of dreams. And then the next step is to just pay attention to them, because then a lot of different signs or information comes through. I'll just say one that seems very synchronistic. So I was holding a class in European time before this, so I've been kind of up all night. So I took a long my sleep, which was just 4 hours before this talk, and I had a dream that your background actually is exactly the same as the dream. And what it was is that we're at a hotel similar to, maybe, I don't know if that's in Hawaii or a very tropical setting. And the ocean came up all the way to the opening of the door. And we were all getting ready to go out and get on these kind of flexible surfboards that were half surfboards, half jet ski. And then we all got on and we started like zooming around the ocean like that. So there's probably a lot of symbolism, a lot of synchronicity, seeing your background and just the energy of the talk. It could represent, the joy of, like, if you've ever been on a jet ski or zooming around on the ocean. And so you can see how this, as a reflection of, back to what we were talking about, you see how, like, other states of consciousness kind of start to blend in with your physical world. And it gives you a wider range of who you are, how you're operating, that you're not just operating on the physical level, that you could be simultaneously operating on other consciousness levels. And that it's not only isolated to yourself, but actually you may start seeing other people, like, but in these other dimensions. And so you realize you're actually interacting in a wider range of consciousness with other people and beings.
All right, that's really cool. Absolutely. And and we've had reports in the webinar series that we do, we're in that group energy. As you said, those energies are being amplified right now. And we do have dreams in the dream space when we're in the middle of these webinars and these sessions. And that right there is an indicator that, yeah, we are multidimensional and we are connecting in that way. And it's really very interesting because we do develop in the dream space. I just want to share very quickly. I too had a dream last night that I was taking the skill of the jumping and flying and getting so good at it. And then people were looking at it like, wow, you're getting really good at that. And so that was a next level of lucidity for me. And it's just an example of how we can work with that, how it just gets stronger and better. And I do want to share, very interesting about your dream, Jean, because water represents consciousness. So that was almost like a rogue sense of freedom and just fun and freedom out on those jet skis slash surfboards that should be on the planet already. So that dream space is not only good for healing and improving and developing the continuity of consciousness, but also building our dreams. We know that we can be in the dream space and be working on projects or getting ideas for things, but this is also how we can work with others and connect with others.
Just saying that a lot of times when to get or to connect with the ideas for, like, future classes or trainings, I usually use shamanic journeying, but there have been a number of times the Arcturians, actually it was right around when we started our dream seminars, they actually downloaded me with the next class information through a dream. I think it was called, like, the Arcturian turbine class, maybe 2 years ago when we started our class on dream yoga, just to maybe also show that, yeah, they really are coming in through these dream transmissions, because it is Arcturian based. And so that's one thing on a very practical level, and that happens to be kind of my work. And so other people may have their own kind of work projects that they can access this type of information through dreaming, or even like a lucid type dreaming. And then the other thing that we've been noting is like you said, particularly when we may have met together in some of the dream workshops, which were over a couple of days, or people who've been at some of the seminars or classes, they'll say that we're meeting in their dream space, like in like a group or a classroom setting. So it's almost like there's a continuation. It doesn't necessarily have to be on what we've been working here. So it's kind of its own unique, I guess, multidimensional information. But that's been reported not just by one or two people, but a number of people over a number of times. So, and that is a phenomena people have reported. They've given it names and so forth, like these astral classrooms that people will meet in.
It feels like that is definitely happening. And as more and more people journal this and write it down, when we share these stories, it will come about. Yes, even sharing some of the dream space, you appear in the dreams of people in the middle of these sessions. So we'll do 3 days together, and there you are in someone's dream. And you might not know it's there, but I just find that so fascinating. And then looking at the symbology in the dreams is really very interesting as well. So very cool. Thank you for sharing. When you work with the Arcturian frequencies, and we've got, again, it just shows the power of the group energy. And so when we're in our asking realm for beings to work with us, you actually use the Arcturian frequencies to assist. And maybe that's part of our experience that we can do in a short transmission in this episode. Do you want to share any more on that, on how the Arcturian frequencies really help to, I don't want to say buffer, but they are like a facilitator in a way?
Mhm. Yes. The main idea is the idea of resonance, and when we kind of well, we're creating thoughts and feelings, and this is how we create our reality and also affect the reality in different dimensions, like our physical dimension, our energetic, our emotional, mental, our causal or karmic dimension, spiritual dimension, divine dimension. So our consciousness, or our particularly our thoughts and feelings, they're like a wave, they're like a vibration, and through resonance they affect other people's consciousness, other beings consciousness, as well as the environment on all those levels. And like attracts like is the main idea with the resonance. So you will attract like beings, like thought forms, almost like a magnet. So working with, and then the other aspect is when you go into resonance with another information field or person or being, I call it an information field because it doesn't have to only be a person per se. You exchange energetic information. So it's sort of like your energetic information is transferred to them or that information field, and that information field gets transferred to your information field. So when working with higher beings such as the Arcturians, so in their a way to assist the planet or assist other beings, whenever we connect with them, we're exchanging energetic information. It doesn't even have, most of it's unconscious. We're not aware of it at the time. And then some of it can unpack that's relevant or important to us over time. And then when they have holding a certain frequency, or if we ask like Melchizedek as another being or Metatron to hold a certain frequency, let's say to clear our emotional obstacles, for example. So it's almost like that they hold a certain frequency, and like almost like a tuning fork. When we bring our awareness or connection to them, that frequency starts to sort of vibrate in our field. And then if the overall intention was to clear, let's say, the emotional body, then that frequency begins to work on our emotional field to sort of either balance or clear things that are maybe discordant or inharmonious. You could say that's one explanation of how energy healing works when you're working with higher dimensional beings who are really the facilitators. And overall, of course, these energies are sourced from what we would call the divine field, or since we mentioned this word, this quantum field of infinite possibilities is another framework, if using a less maybe religious or spiritual overtones or words, and maybe a more up-to-date kind of almost scientific model that's more holistic or even mystic.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, now would be a really good time to experience a little bit of this. Do you want to do a session, a short session here, maybe about 5 or 10 minutes, where we can connect? And the important thing to note is that these are silent. Talk a little bit about the silence and what we do. There's really nothing to do, really, is there?
Mhm. Yes, yes. Just be aware, or just let's see what's happening. But the idea here is, if people have like had an energy healing, or yeah, that's kind of the idea. Is that during the time, like I usually will say, we're starting this energy frequency. It would be as if we were doing an energy healing, and then we're passing the energy during that time, which doesn't necessarily need any physical sound or any physical action. Although some facilitators might do something so that you know that they're there kind of in the physical domain, passing these subtle energies. But the subtle energies themselves are non-physical. So they just sort of come in through your consciousness, through your subtle bodies. And then every so often I'll try to say something just so that you know I'm I'm still around here, channeling, or the beings are channeling the energies through your system. And like you said, you can set your intention for how the energies work with you. You just sort of make that in your mind right before you start. That's how, like maybe you want to work on a certain project, or maybe there is some emotional upheaval or discordant aspect in your field at the moment, and you'd like the energies to balance that, for example. So these are two brand new frequencies that will be part of the next Mastery Empowerment class. They're called the Arcturian Sword frequency and the Arcturian Vessel or Chalice frequency. And I'll just give a little background on this, particularly because they're new, and it'll also help you maybe utilize them for your intention. So in Western esotericism, there's usually the idea of magical or instruments or tools. And in all traditions, you'll see these different tools that a person will use. For example, since we're not mentioning this here, like in the Tibetan tradition, maybe people have seen the Vajra or the bell. These kinds are two things that spiritual practitioners will use. And they usually are ways they represent something spiritually or in the consciousness. There's also what they call the purba in Tibetan Buddhism, which is more like a spiritual dagger. It looks like a point, or it's another like version of the sword. So in Western mythology or Western spirituality, you'll see these different tools that are used that hold a certain symbolism. So back now to something that relates to what we just mentioned. So the sword is very kind of symbolic deep in our subconscious. Like you may have heard of Excalibur, like we all have an idea of Excalibur having this magical properties or representing power. And then also the chalice is a very important Western esoteric symbol. But there's something similar in the Tibetan tradition. They call it the kalpa, which is a bit like they call it a skull cup, but it's sort of more symbolic of something that can be receive energies. So these two forces that are represented by the sword, in this case, we're kind of working with the Arcturians to come through these vessels or kind of these archetypes, and the chalice or the cup represents certain abilities or powers within us. So the sword is really whenever we want to do something or direct our spiritual power or creativity, the sword is like that aspect of doing something, directing the energy. But if you just have that power or that energy or force, it doesn't have anything to contain it or sort of kind of limit it, and it can become it won't manifest if it's completely just full power. So that's what the chalice represents. And it's usually on the right side. So the sword is on the left side of your hand, and the chalice is on the right. So the chalice is like the container. It contains the power into something that's workable or doable in the manifest world. So let's say, just give one example off the top of my head. Like I have that dream or I have an idea, it's very difficult to see that manifest in the physical world until you put it into some kind of program. like you have to like limit it. It can't just be like sort of just its full power. So maybe I'll sort of think of a way to kind of make that into like a 4-step program or a 3-step program. Not that those are anything absolutely real, but they give, and then people can like, usually if you say we have 7 steps, people like that. Like they can really like tune into like the 7-step program, or maybe it's the 5-step program, or 5 chapters in a book. It takes all that sort of creative energy and ideas, and it puts it into a form that's doable and workable in the physical world. So that's what the chalice represents. So the sword represents this creative power. The chalice represents the limiting into a form that's workable in the manifest world. So now the Arcturian energies will help us to bring that kind of energy through. So if you have, like, if you need that creative fire, for example, you might work with the Arcturian sword frequency to develop that. And then if you need something to manifest in a form that is workable for you, or to have limits on something that seems like a very colossal power that's coming through you, then we'll be working with the Arcturian chalice energy. Okay. And so you can just relax and see what you feel, these energies or frequencies. So we're starting with the Arcturian sword frequency to develop our creative power and abilities. You can just relax and just notice whatever you feel. If you have a specific intention, you can state that now. Also, you don't have to have any specific intention. You can just allow it to work in what I call a quantum or open fashion, just letting the intelligence of your higher self decide how it will manifest and where it will work. Continuing to channel the Arcturian sword frequency. And moving to a third deepening cycle of the Arcturian sword frequency. Now we're shifting to the Arcturian vessel or Arcturian chalice frequency. And this focuses on creating a receptacle for the divine energies, the creative energies that we put forth, so it can manifest into the physical world. This frequency is also about limitations and boundaries that allow us to also function in a balanced way. So whatever your intention might be, you can state that now. And again, you can also let it run in a quantum or open fashion. And it will be affecting all your 7 subtle bodies, the physical, etheric, emotional, mental, causal, spiritual, and divine levels. Continuing to deepen in a second deepening cycle of the Arcturian chalice frequencies. And finally, moving to a third deepening cycle, utilizing the Arcturian chalice frequencies. And that completes the energy transmission. You can gently but firmly come back to your physical body now, moving your fingers and your toes, coming completely back to your physical body now. When you feel comfortable, you can open your eyes and snap your fingers.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for that mini transmission so we could experience those frequencies. Let's talk a little bit about it, because when we share our experience, it helps others to understand their experience. Two very different frequencies there, Jean. Your take is always good, and it's interesting to see if it matches up or not, because again, it is different for everyone. Wow. Let's start with the sword. The sword was silvery, maybe
Mm,
a sword. The sword felt very in alignment, very directable,
mm,
but there was a sound of a frequency that it was almost cutting through sounds in the frequency into one clear signal. For
Mm.
me, it seemed like a very clear, like a clarity signal,
Mhm.
clarity through the noise signal. And that was beautiful. Now, the chalice, that was very, it was golden. It felt very womb like. It felt very contained in a way.
Mm.
And these energies, they really are masculine and feminine, right?
Yeah.
What did you
Yeah.
experience? Did you have something similar?
Yeah, exactly. We were probably tuning into the same kind of download, or because yes, I had that same sense of the sword, even though I hadn't been thinking about that. Was the kind of our masculine energies within us, like when we want to put something forth, or like you said, that one particularly strong frequency will like come forth, and that's kind of almost the archetypal ideal aspect of the sword energies or archetype. And people may even feel like they were given a sword or like your higher beings. And it could be given to you by a deity that, or let's say a deity shows up or an angel. It could be a male or female angel. Like Athena might like give someone a sword. So it's not so much the male or female physical form, but it's sort of more that the energetic aspect of that kind of power or straightforwardness, and I did have that idea of the masculine. And then when we came to the chalice or the vessel, I had similar thoughts and kind of, I guess, divine thoughts or insights was that, oh, this is the divine feminine, the infinite kind of, like you said, womb or void. And it's actually, you can see the strength of of this infinite receptivity. It's actually stronger than the kind of direct power because it could just infinitely receive. Eventually, it could wear out if you just keep putting energy out. Eventually, the infinite receptacle will probably win the day, or will win the day because it could just keeps receiving. But anyways, you need these two forces in your life. That was what I was thinking, and they kind of are maybe embodied by these symbols. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And very interesting with the chalice. There was no thought, really. It
Mhm.
was just like give it up, surrender, no thought, no
Mhm.
thought. And so we know that the thought is the right going out and the creativity. So I love that. It was very cool. And thank you for sharing those new frequencies with all of us. So we want to share more about ways that people can work with you. Jean, you and I, we've been doing this for 6 years now. Can you believe that? It's quite amazing. Again, I
Wow.
want to thank you for the creation that we've done together. These are literally experiences that are timeless. The energy is in the programs. There's lots of programs and ways for people to work with you. Your package is on this webpage, and there's several options that are really good for those who want to dive deep or just kind of get a feel for what it is that this is all about. The dream yoga, there's 2 sessions of 6 hour, actually 12 hours total with all of that dream, plus some dream labs. So it's quite extensive, but it's also the next live 3 sessions that we do together. So this is pretty fun. Do you want to share about the upcoming course or in general ways that people can work with all of this content to really improve their lives and to balance their energies, to heal all of it?
Yeah, maybe I'll mention because since we just experienced these two new ones, there are actually four altogether for sure, and that's they actually also represent the directions. But the we mentioned the Arcturian sword and then the Arcturian vessel, their chalice. But there's also an Arcturian staff, and then an Arcturian shield. And while we were experiencing this, this also came to mind the chalice and this kind of divine feminine receiving aspect. I had a lot of water show up, and then water kind of is that sense of being able to, water is actually stronger than like rock. Like eventually the water will wear the rock down, but in a way that's kind of just it's always keeps coming. It's just always there. So, but anyways, the receptacle is the water. So all of these also, these four symbols or actually tools are associated with the four elements. But that'll be the next mastery empowerment class as a frequency. And so we kind of go into a deep dive into the symbolism in our life, as well as experience like a longer version of these transmission energies. But I think what the main point is what you brought up, which I think was really our intention, and that's actually reflected in the spiritual world. And now that we mentioned it, is to kind of create a library of Arcturian frequencies that people can come to and sort of either choose or kind of do whatever the series. Like you said, now we have quite a large series there. That is almost like an archive of esoteric, energetic information that's timeless, and there is something like that in the inner world. I'll just mention to people, it's called the inner library if you do any kind of visionary work or meditation work, because a lot of times you just need to know the address to get to these places in the astral world. But they call it the inner library, and it's just like it sounds like uh, anyone who like usually spiritual practitioners or initiates throughout history who've kind of done their own process have created like a book of knowledge of all their experiences, particularly if they were part of a mystery school. Then of course there's even a larger book for the entire group. But in the astral world, there's actually this inner library that has all that archived knowledge, you could say, in the mental plane. And so by looking at it as a library, because all of us kind of know that archetype, you can go and access like these different books. And like there's certain guardians of these inner libraries that will like when you request, like I'm trying to learn, I don't know, healing, they may get a book, which means this information that maybe a certain spiritual initiate within the history of time had learned and accumulated, and they actually download this information to you. Of course, it's not like you would know it right away, but then it will unpack in your life. So I feel like what we've created here is a bit like a physical reflection of that inner library aspect.
Yes, it is so cool. Thank you so much for that. And to be a little technical and explain it a little bit, it's a really cool way for people to experience it because these are each 2 hours. Each series is 3 2-hour sessions, and they include lectures. I don't want to say lecture, but it includes a discussion of this esoteric material. You share so much of where you get your wisdom and the teachings, which is very eclectic. It's very well read. And so those books and information from that portion of the series is very helpful. And then the transmissions themselves, we extract those out so people can come back to just the energy sessions and work with those in that way. So thank you for this digital
Mhm.
library, this digital esoteric library. What we know is that it is an energetic field, and anytime any one of us goes back into it, we add our consciousness to that group energy. And so it just accelerates or it advances or amplifies that for everyone. So that's beautiful. There's a lot more about this on this webpage for people to check out and just to scroll down and see how it fits for them. There's a couple of ways that people can get in for different price points. So we thank you for that. So thank you, Jean. Thank
Yeah.
you for this now moment. So we're closing, and the most important thing for people to remember in this time on our planet, in your opinion, is what?
Oh, I think that we're like light beams, like we're light radiators. So just this idea of the resonance. So whatever thoughts and feelings we're holding, even if we like never saw another person physically, although that's we get to see a lot of people, I think more through the Zoom and of course the people around us. But we're basically through resonance creating a resonance in them. So we're having a positive effect whenever we're just holding that positivity inside us. And I think that's really what's going to really help the situation now and going forward. I think that's really being developed at a very high level, also with the assistance of the higher beings that we've talked about.
And that is another fine example of how Gene Ang stays balanced with his eyes on the prize always of New Earth and the positivity, finding the positive in everything. Thank you, Gene. You've raised our frequency and we feel great. We are grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Thanks for this awesome platform. And thanks, everyone. It was great talking.